Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be talking about the Formula One Qatar Airways Austrian Grand Prix 2024. This race is another one of my favorite races on the calendar because of its high pace action and how fast each turn is. How there are a lot of overtaking chances on the straightaways and then into turn 1, into turn 3, into turn 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a lot of good overtaking spots, in my opinion. Now, this track is called the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, Austria. The reason it's called the Red Bull Ring is because Red Bull bought it out as a title sponsorship back in 2011. Now, even though they've owned this track since 2011, which is 13 years now, they've only won 3 home races, and those were all by Max Verstappen. Now, this race is one of the fastest races because of the lack of turns. There are only 10 turns in this Grand Prix. That is the least amount of turns from any Grand Prix on the modern F1 calendar. Now, that doesn't deny the fact that back in 1963 to 1968, the Austrian Grand Prix was hosted in Zeltweg Airfield. Now, this track in Zeltweg only had 4 corners. That is tied for the least amount of corners with Davos in Germany. It is also the shortest track at 3.186 kilometers. That is under 2 miles. That is not allowed anymore per FIA regulations. All F1 tracks have to be over a certain amount of miles, except for the Circuit de Monaco, which was grandfathered in because it's the second oldest race on the F1 calendar. With the low turns becomes really, really fast-paced racing. That leads it so it has the fastest lap time on any track on the modern F1 calendar at 105.619 by Carlos Sainz back in 2020. Now, this track is 4.318 kilometers, which is, again, not that long, and makes a time of 1:05 more realistic with a shorter track. Now, this week in Austria is a sprint weekend. This means that they will have a sprint race on Saturday at 6 o'clock in the morning for Eastern Standard Time, which is where I'm from. You may realize that I haven't posted a video about the Spanish Grand Prix. That's because I won't be, because I was on vacation and I don't care. My YouTube channel, I can do what I want. Lance Stroll and Pierre Gasly both got extended. Lance Stroll should not be surprising considering his father owns the team, and Pierre Gasly's been having some good pace and not been crashing into his teammate, Ocon. But we'll see how those end up. I do not remember. It said from 2025 onward on Lance Stroll, and I do not remember what it said for Pierre Gasly. So I don't know how long these contracts are or the information. That's one thing I don't like about F1. They're very vague in what the contracts are, at least from what I can tell. In NFL, they're like, oh yeah, it was a 5-year, $280 million deal with this signing bonus. They're very upfront about it and tell you all the details you need. But F1, all you need to know is that he's on that team now. Some interesting things to look for during this race is Lando having some great pace over the past couple races, looking like he is the second fastest driver on the track, and probably one of the fastest cars, maybe the fastest car. This is McLaren if you can't read it. Now, I'm looking forward to this because Lando winning his second race sounds great to me. And the video is being recorded after the sprint qualifying rounds, where Lando got P2 by only 0.093 seconds. And there was a 0.2 gap to P3 by his teammate Oscar Piastri. So Lando and Max are having this insane fight for races now, which if you told anybody at the beginning of last year, they wouldn't have believed that because of how bad McLaren was early on. Since this video was recorded after sprint qualifying, Logan Sargent outqualified Alex Albon for the first time in his F1 career. Now, Sargent has had some good races, outqualifying other top cars like Sergio Perez, if you want to find him as a top car. And him outqualifying Albon really is kind of sad because he's still not going to be in the F1 racing grid next year unless he does something amazing in the next couple weeks. He's looking to move to IndyCar from what I could read. Now, I don't know if I can find this again, but that's what I read on Instagram one day, so I'm going to take it and run with it. Now, one of the more unexpected title runners that I've seen this year is Alpine. Alpine, at the beginning of this year, had probably the worst car on the grid, with some of the worst drivers on the grid in their French. That just can't be good. Now they are looking like one of the top 5 teams, out qualifying and out racing Aston Martin with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Last race they got P9 and P10, only losing positions to Sergio Perez in only losing positions to Sergio Perez, which he probably should gain them over Alpines. Now, in the sprint qualifying that just happened, both Alpines qualified for P8 and P9, which, again, is really good. But the only reason they got those positions was because Charles Leclerc stalled out in the pit lane going into the his one and only lap around. The only reason they got these good positions was because Charles Leclerc stalled out in the pit lane during Q3, which prevented him from getting a time in that qualifying round. Now, speaking of Charles Leclerc, he has had some great history at the Red Bull Ring, with 1 win, 1 pole position, which was in a different race, and 3 second places, and hasn't finished outside the points, which is very impressive for being in a Ferrari for most of his career. Now, looking at the man in charge, Max Verstappen, he is on a 3-pole streak at the Red Bull Ring. He has won 2 of them. Charles Leclerc has won 1 of them, but Max is looking to extend his streak, and he's looking to have some really good pace going into this week. During the actual race, they will be used. Now, talking about the actual race. Now, the FIA announced 2 weeks ago that they are lowering the age to enter F1 from 18 to 17, which will allow Kimi Antonelli to join the grid next year for Mercedes in place of Lewis Hamilton. This happened 2 weeks ago, but I haven't posted a video in 16 days, so I have an excuse for being late on this information. Last year, the top 5 were Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, and Fernando Alonso. Now, with all of that, I'm going to make my predictions for qualifying and race, which are not going to be any good because I'm stupid. For qualifying, I think Max is going to set pole, continue his streak. He's just looking like the best driver on the grid. And then I got Lando Norris. That should be self-explanatory. Then Charles Leclerc, because of his history of having good pace in this track. And then I got George Russell, and then Oscar Piastri, because Mercedes is looking really good, and Piastri has also been looking really good in his second year in F1. It's hard to believe that a racer doing top 5s in his second year. If only Logan Sargent could do that. Guess not. During this race, there are probably going to be a lot of overtakes, unlike Monaco this year. I think Max and Lando are still going to keep the 1-2, but Piastri is going to gain up to 3rd. Leclerc is going to go up to 4, and Hamilton is going to finish in 5, because I feel like George Russell just doesn't have that great of race pace from what I saw in Spain, and Hamilton is a vet. He deserves to have P5. He looks good in the last race, finishing from, P5, P4, all the way up to P3, getting his first podium of the year. Congrats. Well, that is all I have for this week at Austria, not Australia. Those are different places. And I hope that my predictions are correct. No, I hope they're wrong, because I want Lando to win. And not to be that, but I want some big crashes, and preferably Max to win. I don't want people to be hurt, but it's more fun when people crash. That's why I also watch NASCAR, because crashing's funny. Anyways, see you all in the next video. Go check out the this video. It should be like here or something, or maybe that's maybe that's subscribe here. I don't remember. I set this up somehow. I don't remember. Subscribe, comment anything I missed, comment your predictions, and we'll see how we fare up against each other. Now, I'll see you all in after the race and when I'm all correct. Yo, editor me here. I recorded this in 4K accidentally, so it's missing some things because I don't feel like... Well, currently, this is what my disc looks like. That's not normal. It's not supposed to be that full. That's because it's trying to draw 4K video to this. So, that's why if it's missing something, if something doesn't make sense, that's because I can't see the video or I can barely hear it. I'm just guessing where I had things. So, sorry about that. I don't feel like re-recording this. This was, what, 20 minutes long? And I've edited it down to 10 and a half. That's how much I go ranting on about. But, again, I'm sorry. I don't feel like redoing this again.